Rest.
Welcome everybody to session 2 of CHCMHS005. We've got a few people down tonight, so we wish them well and a speedy recovery. Please excuse my croaky voice tonight. I'm one of those that have come down with something over that many of us are suffering with colds. Okay, to begin with, let's do the acknowledgement of country. Ayan, would you be able to do the acknowledgement of country, please? Or you're feeling unwell?
I can do it if you want, Helen.
Yes, please, Tash.
In the spirit of reconciliation, Hayter Institute of Education acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea and community. We recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of this nation and the traditional custodians of the lands on which we work, live and study. We express our gratitude for the sharing of this land, our sorrow for the personal, spiritual and cultural costs of that sharing, and hope that we may move forward together in harmony and the spirit of healing. We pay our respects to all First Nations people and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you, Tash. Well said. Just remember tonight, have your monitors on and your mics off, but if you're feeling unwell, please sit back, turn your monitor off. Just let me know that you're here, and if you want to participate. Really crucial this time of year that we're being kind to ourselves, taking some time out if we are unwell, and nourishing ourselves. Get that chicken soup into us all. Right, let's have a look. We're looking at building and working relationships in the AOD sector, the documenting plans around the format of support plans that we need to put in place for recovery, and facilitating strategies on supporting and planning recovery, and referrals, how are they made. So first of all, as a warm-up activity, I would like everybody individually to find 2 AOD services. Who do they cater for? Are they age restricted? Just putting it in the chat. And what programs do they offer within their services? So 2 services I would like for you to bring back. We're going to put it up on the screen to share with all our learners. It's important also too, if you could bring it back, you let me know what state you're in. But we want to have a look at the differences of what they're catering for and what's the criteria for to be a participant in these programs as well, because there are certain restrictions on some programs. So let's have a look. Let's take about 5 minutes. Just have it 5-6 minutes. Just do some research on your own there. Welcome, Salam.
Hello, Helen. Hi.
Yeah, good, thank you. We've just opened up the session, and I'm going to put into the chat an activity. We're just doing single research at the moment, and we're looking at finding 2 AOD services in our area where we live. What criteria do they require to be a participant, and what programs do they offer?
Okay.
And I'll put it in the chat for you. And then we're going to bring that back and we'll put it up on the board. Right, Mark, what have you found?
Sorry, Ellen, I was drifting off. I was trying to find that other place I was talking about as well. But
Oh, sorry.
no, but that's okay. No, so look, the two I found was Salvation Army. I'm aware of them. I've
Okay.
actually spoken at one of their rehabs in Alinda. So I'm in Melbourne, and they do everything. They do alcohol services, psychology, pharma, peer support. I don't know what naloxone is. Naloxone. Don't know what that is. Sexual health, etc.
Naloxone is like a if I'm correct, it's like a drug preventative. Like they give it to people. It's when
No,
people say they get knocked.
no, I think that's naltrexone. That's what you're
Oh,
thinking
okay.
of.
That's not Jackson.
Yeah, no, this is Nalox, Naloxone. Naloxone. I don't know what that is. Secure as sexual health, etc. And Bass Coast Health. They're all age groups for Salvation Army, and same with Bass Coast Health, which is in southeast suburbs of Melbourne. They do AOD counselling. Coordinators, care coordinators, referrals, home-based withdrawal programs, pharma, needle syringe program, and support.
Did you say naloxone?
Yeah, it's Naloxone. Yeah, naloxone.
Yeah. It reverses an opioid overdose.
So I was right.
No, I thought that was naltrexone. No.
Naloxone is just specific for opioids.
Okay,
Yeah.
and naltrexone
Naltrexone
is for alcohol. Naltrexone is for alcohol dependence. Okay, so there we go.
alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah, which is
And
spelled Naltoexone.
XONE.
Yeah.
But that's a mix of AOD and opioid dependence.
What
Whereas the other one,
naltrexone or
naltrexone, is
is
to treat alcohol use disorder and opioid dependence. So
yeah.
there's two separate things there happening, but with the other one, it is straight out overdose
Okay,
of the opioid.
okay, so that's naloxone.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I hadn't heard of that one before, so there you go.
Yes. Welcome, Sharon. We're just looking at service
Hello,
AOD
everyone. Good
service.
evening.
Hi, Sharon. We're just looking at AOD services in our area and what they're supplying. What was the second group, Mark, that you had?
Bass Coast Health.
Basco. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. they're in the southeast
Okay, thank
suburbs.
you.
And that was all ages as well, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. And
Mhm.
family support. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Sagar has found DASSA in South Australia. It's in partnership with South Australia POL. Not sure what is the South Australia POL, Sagar, do you know?
Basically, it's a South Australian police force,
Yeah.
and they do give services for people seeking for support regarding alcohol and drugs, and they do have
Okay.
certain programs like Aboriginal service and programs, needle and series programs, and yeah, so far they are in three metropolitan on SA, so on central, northern, and southern suburbs. And their services are based on Barossa, Clare, Mount Barker, Mount Gambier, Murray-Bridge. That's mostly normally like the regional and the northern suburb of Adelaide.
Yeah.
And yeah, pretty much they do all those counseling and management services, withdrawal management services as well.
And thank you. Welcome, Adam. We're just looking at we're researching AOD services in our area and what criteria they seek and what supports they're putting in place. Is it age restricted? Things like that. All right. Ayan, have you found any?
Yes, I have. I'm in Canberra.
Yep.
So I got few, but I got the main. I have 3. So Canberra has the Alcohol and Drugs Foundation. It's a national. The focus on building a safe place for people with mental health and resilience and accommodation. There's Carolee. It's KARRALIKE. They run a program, so they look after young children and youth. That's the focus. They do run youth programs. And then we have Canberra Health, the focus on mental health. Health services. Have the alcohol and drug services, and specifically for mental health.
Thank you. Salam, did you find some? Haru, did you find any?
I think I found one. I live in NSW. So I found Central Coast Local Health District Drug and Alcohol Services.
Sorry, what was that? Central Coast, was it?
Local Health District Drug and Alcohol Service. So it's located in it's Central Coast Local Health District. So they specialize on drug and alcohol services, mental health. They also provide service regarding opioid treatment. They also have cannabis clinic.
Sorry. Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they also offer 24-hour drug and alcohol advice. And they also provide drug and alcohol rehabilitation services. Yeah, I think that's the one I found. Yeah. Thanks.
That one certainly covers a lot, doesn't it? From one services. Yeah, the big service set. Awesome. Great work.
Yeah. No worries.
Okay.
Did you call me? Sorry.
Sorry?
Salam.
Yep.
Yeah, in my area, alcohol and other drug services, Milton and Caroline Spring in Melbourne.
Thank you. So Did we find, obviously the Central Coast one was very comprehensive and very, excuse me, identifying the differences around with the opioid treatment, the same as the one that you talked about, Mark, with was it the Basque Coast Health one that did the naltrexone support as well? Naloxone, what is it called?
So yes,
were-
naloxone.
Yeah,
Naloxone.
very specific in there for those services as well. But interesting with what you've all found, would be mainly adult support.
You miss
Whereas,
me.
where are you? Hang on,
You
let me.
missed my tiny little area of Australia.
Hang on,
That's
let
all
me.
right. It's not important. It's fine. I didn't find that much anyway. Nothing that hasn't already been covered.
What did you find in? Did you go to Albury, Wodonga, or Wagga Wagga?
Albury.
Yeah, okay. Let's
So
go.
it's basically the main one is the Albury Community Health. It's interlinked with the main hospital system. It has AOD, mental health, physio, Suboxone programs, methadone programs. It has a 1-800 number to call, which is related to AOD, and they also obviously have another 1-800 number for mental health. They're all ages, and like you see them if you're in the emergency department, you'll see someone go up to the window and get their little black box of medication, and they just like dash off, and you're like, what was that about? And then yeah. But then you also have St. Vincent de Paul, but they're only for 18 years and over for a total of 6 months at a time, and outreach.
Hey, Helen, I just want to add something for the Carolee.
Caroline Springs.
Not for the
Oh,
Carolee,
Caroline, yeah.
for the Canberra one.
Yep.
They do run some program with the they call it the program links to the justice system. So things
Oh,
like
okay.
that. So they do have 5 services that they offer, and mainly is like the partnered with governments and or the correction office, something like that. So they have so they have 5. So they have living in residential, they have program in the community, they have program links to the youth to the justice system, and they have program for children and young people. So I think that's about 4. And these have their own bodies, I guess. Each have their own little bodies to it.
Yeah. Buddy system you're talking, or central body system to their makeup?
So
Like,
each small subject have their own services that they run,
yeah, okay.
but they're all tied under the one name.
Okay. Thank you. Great lot of information there. All right. Let's have a look at, excuse me, my throat. Let's have a look at what is AOD counselling. Just going to press pause there. It's interesting to see one of the things that one of the workers was talking about was helping people to find their best way forward, whether they're reducing their use or not, but helping them to live the most healthiest way that they can. That's certainly a holistic approach here. Interesting to see. Anybody else's thoughts on that? Anybody? No? Okay. I'll just share my screen again. Right, so you can see from what the workers were talking about in that building those relationships would have to be able to support those conversations freely without bias or judgment here when working in the AOD sector, and thinking about the way that those workers were talking in that video around that, talking the benefits of well-being and how they communicated very clearly but very plainly. They didn't use big terminology. They were very talking about a lot of support and respect for the client for where they were at. Talked about fostering that client's strength, and you would be gathering and reviewing information as you're doing all this and looking for different approaches that you would be working with the client with, or the participant, and helping them to make informed decisions about, you know, those approaches that they want to use, and resources and services that you can support them with. And your job here is identifying those services, but also then identifying the benefits and any limitations around those that have to be considered in having a plan moving forward around somebody's holistic health. When you're working in the industry, it's important to use your motivational interviewing skills here, and this is crucial to help with your work with the client, showing them that you're listening, that you're actively participating, you're listening, you're absorbing the context of what's being said, the messages you're hearing from it. What are you visually seeing around those messages as well, from the verbals and the non-verbals, and helping people normalize statements when they've said something. How do you assist them to speak up and talk about issues that they find difficult expressing, you know, because of shame and guilt and embarrassment? And this is where, you know, the client can talk to you about their feelings and try and normalize these, and that they aren't the only ones experiencing and feeling the same things. And this is one of the skills here with motivational interview is that reframing, looking at it in another way that can help the person move forward using a different, more positive approach, rather than focusing on that negative of a situation that they're in. And then you can summarize and wrap these up, and you bring this into a combination of using your reflective listening skills, as well as presenting back to them and putting a more positive spin on that. And those open-ended questions are crucial here, and helping people talk for as long as they want to, but also trying to not just sit on one or two words, trying to prompt participants to say more than yes, no, or maybe, and trying to get the participant to think a little bit more deeply about their actions and what they want to do. Mark, can you give me a bit of an overview, maybe from some of your work you've done here? What are some of the skills that you've found that are useful for you when you're working with somebody to try and help them tease out a bit more when they're really not wanting to give you much?
Okay, so I try and play back something to them. So reframing is what it's called here, what I call it playing something back to them. So they might say to me, for example, look, I don't think I'm going to a meeting tonight because I've got to cook dinner for my wife. And I say, okay, so what's more important to you, your recovery or cooking dinner? And get them, reposition it to them, and they will say, well, you know, my recovery. And I'll say, well, what's the most important thing to you in your life? Well, my family, my wife. Okay, so if you think that's the most important thing to you, what happens if you drink again? You're going to lose all of them, are you? And I will play that back, and yes, I will. So then, therefore, you not drinking again in your recovery is the most important thing in your life. Yes. Okay, great. So what's more important? Again, getting to a meeting tonight or cooking dinner? Getting to a meeting tonight. Great. Okay. So, you know, and look, Helen, this, as I said to you before, this illness, whether it's drugs or alcohol, is cunning, baffling, powerful, and patient. You know, it's not like cancer. I mean, you know, cancer, it'll tell you to go and get help. It'll tell you to, with cancer, go and get your chemotherapy. But with drugs and alcohol and with addiction, it'll take everything from you and keep taking until you're dead. It doesn't want anything but you to be dead. That's its primary goal of this disease, and it infests and nests in your head, and gets you to tell yourself you're okay. Maybe you overdid it. Maybe you, you know, it'll be different next time. You know, maybe next time, maybe you're not really an alcoholic or a drug addict. Maybe you made a big deal of this, but you know, you just need to go back and play it back to them. So reframe and say, okay, so tell me what it was like last time you drank, and the time before, Were you able to help yourself then? How was your thinking? Did that work for you? Okay, that didn't work for you. That didn't work for you. That didn't work. So how about you let somebody else do your thinking for a little while? How about you just follow some suggestions and see if that works? Because your suggestions that you've been giving yourself has done nothing for you so far, but got you walking into AA, which is a rock bottom for just about everybody. You know, it's funny. Sorry, I'm going to digress here, but you walk into AA and it's a spiritual answer. It's a spiritual answer to your recovery is right there. So someone will walk in and they've lost everything. They're sleeping in the back of their car. Their family have walked out. They've lost their business, lost money, everything. And they walk in and they see the word God or spiritual approach to things. And they go, yeah, isn't there something else that I can... give me anything else but have to talk to God. Give me anything else but to take a spiritual approach to this, please. Anything.
They do the same in GA.
Yeah, of course. You know, well, I don't, geez, wait a minute. Death by drugs or alcohol or gambling or a spiritual approach to this. Yeah, that's a really hard choice.
But it's such a spasm in between that, isn't it? So you can see why I can either run that way or that way. And do I run back to what I know or run to something that I can't see?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. You run to something that you can't see, that you don't believe in, but you can hope because you see other people have got effect to it. So you just, when you learn to be able to shut up, listen, and just give yourself over to listening to people around you, your recovery can begin. But while you're fighting it, while you're trying to do it yourself, because the willpower is never the solution for addiction. It just doesn't work. It's a dead end. Willpower. I mean, I've built a business from scratch out of my garage to 64 staff. I've got a lot of willpower. I sponsor a guy who swam the English Channel and had to spend a year having cold showers every single morning, and twice or three times a week he had to swim Port Phillip Bay to prepare himself to get to. But could he give up alcohol? No. Buzz Aldrin could land on the moon. There's a pretty powerful guy, but could he give up alcohol? No. There's plenty of willpower in these blokes, but it just doesn't work when it comes to addiction. Willpower just does not go, because this thing is, as I said, cunning, baffling, powerful, and patient. And reflecting is a massive one. I was doing that today with a chap I was talking to. Tell me about the last times. Tell me the times you were powerless against this. Oh, okay. Well, there was this one. Right. So now you've got a little bit of momentum at 2 weeks sober, this guy is. You can play it forward. You can play that next drink forward. You know, before you couldn't, because it was just a blur of feeling sorry for yourself and not knowing how to get out of it. And you couldn't just, one more drink will fix it. I'll be able to fix this. I'll be able to fix it. And it couldn't. So now you've got 2 weeks, you can play it forward. You can go, right, I know what's going to happen if I pick up that drink again. I've got the past to look at. So before I make that decision, because now it's a conscious decision after 2 weeks, it is a conscious decision. It wasn't 2 weeks ago. It was because he's in full-blown addiction. You've got no power over this. It's just wake up, right now, where's the next drink or drug or gamble or food or whatever the addiction is. So I think I've covered all of those in that, and attending
And do you
skills.
think that's where, in that space now, 2 weeks on, because it's a conscious decision, that's where the more fear sets in, because you've got to make a pathway choice then, haven't you? You're at that crevice.
It's petrifying.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, look, but here's the thing. He's got a team of 10 people around him, 10 guys that'll take his call every single morning, all
Wow.
throughout the day. All he needs to do is just make sure he just picks up the phone and calls us and
Yeah.
checks in with us. And if he does that, then he's got a team of guys around him who are there to support him. So we're trying to take away that fear.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, part of the program. If he's in constant contact with somebody, there's not so much fear, because that person hopefully can say, yeah, that was like that for me. I understand. This is what I did. Please just keep doing what you're doing, because what you're doing is working. Don't let that little thing on your shoulder, and that's the way I refer to it, that little fellow on your shoulder, stand up and tickle your ear again and say, hey, you don't need to call Mark today, because it's been working. Why would you change it? Because he doesn't want you calling me. He doesn't want you going to AA. He doesn't want you doing the steps of the program. He wants you to drink. And he knows full well that if he can talk you out of doing what's been working for you, there's a very high chance that you're going to pick up a drink again. And your willpower will cut in. And how did your willpower go before?
Yeah.
And you know, and that's the
Thank
way we're
you.
frame it. Sorry, Alana.
I think it's very, look, I don't know enough about this. You know, I know how to support someone. I haven't been there. So hearing about the actual work on the ground that's happening here, like to think that that person has 10 people that he could reach out to for a start, but it's that whole motion of pick up phone call that must have that,
It
will I, won't
becomes
I, do I need that or not? If I go this way, that means I'm choosing, and there's the fear and the unknown that comes with that as well.
This will blow you away. This here is in my wallet. Now, I won't show you up close, but there's 100 men on that list, and their phone numbers and their sobriety date, that I can pick up the phone and call at any time.
Wow.
100 men in my home group. That's a support network, and they don't charge me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's free.
Thank you, Mark. It's
Okay.
really good insights. Tash?
Yeah, I just wanted to second basically everything that Mark was saying. The picking up the phone and calling somebody actually becomes a subconscious thing after in about 2 to 3 weeks. You end up noticing that you're having a panic attack or you're wanting to have a drink or go gamble or whatever the situation is. And then you end up finding that you're calling that sponsor and then telling that sponsor how you're feeling. And then you're going, oh, the system's failing me. But then you don't realize that you picking up the phone and contacting your sponsor is actually the system working for you.
It's yeah, it is. It's fascinating, but and everything has a reason. And the whole idea of that is, I was sponsoring, just a very quick story, I was sponsoring a guy for 6 months, and he was calling me every single morning. And he was so used to calling me. I was standing in the airport in Sydney. I was about to get a plane back at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And he rang me and he said, I'm standing outside a bottle shop. He said, I'm going in. I'm sick and tired of this. I can't do it. And I had to make a choice of missing my plane or talking him out of that bottle shop. And I think I shared this a few weeks ago. And but he was so used to picking up the phone and calling me that it was easy for him to talk because he had a relationship with me. He could talk honestly with me, and that's the whole reason we set it up that way. So call. So when you do get in crap, it's really easy to pick up that phone because you've got someone there who knows, who understands. Fortunately, he didn't go in the bottle shop, and he's 5 years sober now. So good.
How does that feel to be a part of that pivotal change?
You know what? Sometimes it's amazing, Helen. Sometimes absolutely amazing, but there's also lots of devastation. You know, you see guys work so hard for the recovery, and then that little fella wins the battle that's sitting on the shoulder, and he talks them out of doing the stuff that they were doing. It's really, really simple. It's not time-consuming being a part of AA. You know, nowhere near as time-consuming as when I was drinking. But you know, something happens, and the moment of madness sets in. They walk away, and then when next time you see them, if you see them again, and there's the big if you see them again, they're either completely stuffed, and their life has got worse because, you know, when they go back again after any period of sobriety, they go back and the first thing you do is you start drinking or drugging to the level that you were before. And the body is not prepared for that because it's had
That's a
such
risk of overdosing.
And you just absolutely obliterate yourself. And to try and get back again, then your ego and pride won't let you face up and say, I failed, because that little fella's telling you, you know, oh, you failed, don't, you know, it's too hard, you're going to go back there, everyone's going to look at you, everyone's going to put their nose up at you, and they're going to call you a failure, which they're not. But, you know, you can't differentiate between the true and the false when you're in that state. And
Well, I was just doing some research for one of my assessments through this course, and it was in relation to drugs and alcohol, obviously. And it said, just like you said, they cease use for X amount of time, and then say they use crystal meth 2 or 3 times a day for 7 months straight, go cold turkey for 3 months, and then they go, oh, you know, they get the case of the efforts, and then they use again, and then they use the same consistency that they did when they were using frequently, and then they end up overdosing, and then they end up getting, you know, in hospital on a ventilator because they've had a drug overdose, because their body has finally detoxed itself from all those chemicals, all those unwanted stuff that was pumping through their system. And now for it to go back into their system's like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. What I want to say, though, I'd love to talk to you about one I'd love the class to talk about, You know, there's different types of alcoholics too, Helen. You know, there is not, you know,
You got high functioning.
yeah, look, I mean, there's a point where an alcoholic of my type gets to where there is no turning back. You cannot slow down. You get to a point where it is it becomes being a luxury and becomes a necessity. And at that point, you cannot deal without it. But then there is others who comes 7 o'clock at night, they'll start drinking. They might get drunk every night. They might be an alcoholic, but they're not lining up at the bottle shop at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so there's different types of alcoholics, and there's heavy drinkers, and the differentiating between those is a little bit difficult. But in time now in AA, I've sponsored hundreds of guys. I can see it now, and I can actually see when they're slipping and when they're going to drink again now, and it gets very frustrating. Because you know it's about to happen, and you could almost say to them, listen, why don't you save yourself some time and just go and buy go and buy a pallet of alcohol, because when you have your first drink, you're going to wake up the next morning and you're going to say, I'm never doing that again. By lunchtime, you'll be off at the shop buying yourself another load, and that's going to happen for weeks and months. So buy yourself a slab, get it in bulk. It's going to be a lot cheaper for you.
Wow.
Buy yourself a pallet, because it's going to be a lot cheaper for you than just going to the bottle shop every single day, which is what's going to happen.
So then if that happened and then they get to that point where they go, can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
What consciously ticks over?
Yeah, that's a really good question. But they call it the rock bottom. But everyone's rock bottom is different. But my great-grand sponsor, who's 36 years sober, would say most of the time they've lost everything worthwhile.
Yeah.
And
And
alcohol.
sometimes it's their health as well. Like I had a friend that would drink every night, party every night, use drugs every night, and then all of a sudden her kidneys started failing, and she had to go on dialysis. And she was 19 on dialysis.
Bloody hell.
She was at a train station one day and took her concoction at the train station, and she was dead before she hit the ground because her kidneys had just completely shut down and she didn't have time to get to a dialysis machine.
Yeah, there's I'm saying that though, health is not a sufficient enough reason to give up alcohol.
No.
If you're an alcoholic.
It's just a comorbid thing that
I've got a guy who I'm dealing with who's had 4 heart attacks, and he's only 36 years of age, because every time he drinks, he ends up getting ice, and then he just goes for it. So he knows he's an alcoholic, but he just keeps doing it. And he knows he's going to die, and he runs a really successful business, big business, and he's quite wealthy, but his heart attacks are not sufficient enough reason for him to give up alcohol. He keeps going back to it.
It's like something that eats away.
Yeah, you have to lose. Yeah. You have to lose everything, and I thought I had, but there was a point where I just got on my knees and I couldn't do it anymore, and then from that everything started to change. But
Thank you for being
sorry
so
for
honest
taking
and
over the class.
Yeah.
No, this is information that I don't have a lived experience of.
Well,
I can talk to it as a support person, but not.
Well, when you get into the technicalities of it, Helen, you start talking about the medical side of this. That's when it gets really interesting, because AA works on the fact and so does I think GA, but certainly NA, that there is a allergy. The person has builds an allergy to alcohol.
Yeah.
Now that allergy, if you take that back to the science of it, it's all to do with the dopamine. So our dopamine receptors are smaller. They become smaller because we're constantly getting this dopamine fix that alcohol, sugar, every other high is giving us. So the dopamine receptors are getting smaller, so we need more and more to fill it.
Yep.
And so we've got to have that dopamine fix. And now we've just got an allergy to it. We cannot have alcohol because it just sets off that need for more.
Yeah.
But anyway,
And I think,
Sorry.
go on, Tash.
I was going to say, one of my sponsors actually described it as alcohol and gambling and drugs, like addiction, is like diabetes. You can't cure it, but you can manage it. And that's where, once you hit rock bottom, that's where the management starts. It's like trying to force somebody to do a diabetes test. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And if they don't know they're diabetic, how are they going to be able to help themselves? So they need to do the legwork beforehand. But anyway, I've gone off on a tangent. I'm going to unmute.
I think what I want to reflect on here is what I've heard from Mark and Tash and what I know of the theory and the practice that goes into working in this area is that, and I think Mark did bring it up, it is about those reflecting and attending skills. I've put it in the chat around reflecting and those underlying messages, what the client is trying to say to you, what that person is trying to show their feelings about, what they're wanting you to understand. You're trying to decipher this. And this is where the person that you're working with can learn something about themselves too that they never realized previously when you're doing that reflecting work. As Mark was saying, you did all these things before. How is that working for you? Why is that not working now? What's got you to where you want to do something different? So you're picking up the little nuances that are saying, I want to do something, I just don't know how. Then with your attending skills, you're then assuring that the client can see that they're interested. We want to hear about that problem. We want to help you through this, but they're also using their body, they're non-verbals, they're discouraging that defensiveness in the person. They're not going away, they're not backing away. And Mark, what takes the control there when somebody is butting up against that brick wall that's consciously pushing the discouragement button and you're trying to encourage? How do you hold that space and not go, well, your choice, mate, sorry.
yeah, that's really interesting because I'm a counsellor to these guys every day, and I take 7 calls every morning. And yeah, I mean, I want to give up. You hear that a lot, Mark. You know, I always go, okay, let's look how far you've come. So I've known you for 5 years, 1 year, 2 years, whatever, 2 weeks. I know the conversations we were having 2 weeks ago, and this is what it was like for you. Do you remember that? And yes, okay. Now, in that time, and then I remind them, in that time, you've got a new job, you've got a company car, your family's back together. You can live close to you now because the arguments in the household have slowed down. You know, you know, and so whenever you want to give up, let's think about all the stuff that you've built. And in that short period of time, in 5 years or 1 year, you've done this. What's it going to be like in 5 years' time? I mean, if your life keeps getting better without alcohol, why in the hell would you want to give up?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got this madness in you that thinks, you know, it's a better way to drink. So what it is you're looking for a solution, and the solution that you're looking for is an easy solution. The solution that's available to you is for you to look at yourself and go, where's my problem? what's affecting me? Why am I feeling
Mhm.
this way? What do I need to do to stop feeling this way that is not sticking a drink back in me or a coin into the machine? How do I tackle this situation? Why do I feel bad? So why do you feel bad? Okay.
Taking that ownership on board to say, you know, this is what's happening for me, but also saying I need help.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's your biggest hurdle sometimes in how can you can ask the questions, and I've seen that a lot. How can you help me? What can you do? When will you do this? Will you be doing this? And I sat there and listened to this person and I said, so can I ask, where is the I in all this? And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, you talked about all the things that you wanted me to do, but I didn't hear anything about what you're going to do or what you feel you want to put yourself into that space. You want to know what I will do to combat these things.
Yeah.
You haven't asked how can I do this?
You do have to, you've got to own your own recovery. Absolutely. And this is why I got frustrated a few weeks ago with this person-centered approach. Let's go to a rehab and design my own recovery. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. What I'm saying is that, you know, the amount of people that come in and they say, I'm doing it for my wife or I'm doing it for my kids. No, because if you don't do it for you, you know, there's always going to be an excuse. If your wife leaves you, if something happens to your kids, well, I was only doing it for them anyway. No, it's got to be for you.
And it's hard to bring up that self-value when there is nothing there. You've abused yourself for that long that self-value is gone. So how do you then pick up and say, I will do this for me? That's where the hard work starts, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and
well,
that's lots of reflecting, lots of spending time going back, looking at processes, unpacking them,
yeah,
and realizing what you've done previously that have dysregulated you.
yeah. And if you want to build self-esteem, do you know the easiest way to build self-esteem, Helen? Do
Tell me.
esteemable acts, right? And you
Yeah.
know, if someone's down, you know, it's ridiculous, but when they come along to a meeting, send them in the kitchen,
Yeah.
the place they don't want to be.
Yeah.
Wash some bloody dishes. Be of
Do
use.
something for somebody else.
That's right. Yeah. Help an old lady across the street. Go and pay for the guy's McDonald's behind you or the family's McDonald's in the queue behind you. Do an esteemable act and your self-esteem will rise.
That raises the dopamine.
Yeah, of course it does.
You know,
but
the
it's a
good
bloody good
feeling.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. And because this is what we do a lot of work with youth work this way, in that the focus is so much on them that when you get them to put the focus onto another process, because doing something for somebody else is a process. And when you're putting those thought patterns into that and trying to do it, because it's not automatically, it doesn't happen. You need people to help you do that sometimes. But that the finalization, the outcome is what you've done, and what you get back from that is the driver to want to go and do something else again for somebody else. They don't see the changes in them, and it takes time, but it does build up that resilience that I matter. And that's where they're learning I matter means to be a part of a system, because it is a cycle. And if you're seeking support and then learning how to give it, you're doing a cycle, cycling in and out of that. And this is where your models of change come in as well. This is where we've heard from Mark around that, you know, people who are contemplating getting in not ready to do it. Will I, won't I? Will I present and to work towards change, or will I fight it and I'm not ready, I'm not willing to change, I'm not ready to take ownership of that. It's easier to stay with this behavior than work towards recovery. And people can get defensive, and they can be dismissive of their addiction as well. They all can find a way to explain it and have a reason. But when they get to that seesawing stage, this is where the crucial crux, where things can start to happen, when they could hear the good side, not the nagging side. And this is where the planning and support people, like what Mark does, comes into play. And that's when action can start. This is where change happens at the root level here. And as you say, lapse and relapse can happen. You come back into your cycle. And as Mark has shown, people who are in this industry, we will be here. We're still here. We haven't gone away. As Mark said, I've got 100 people in my wallet. So there are this amazing network. But do we see that and do we hear that when we're stuck in a different model? And if we're not in the model of contemplation, of getting prepared to start the work, you're in contemplation, you can get pulled the other way. But getting into that maintenance stage, avoiding returning to old behaviors, coping mechanisms, self-management strategies, this is where the complex stakeholder network that you need around you and supporting you through that. All right, let's take a break here and we'll come back. Just going to pause. Come back, everyone. All right, so let's have a look at services and decisions that should be done in, if you're working in the industry, that consultation with your participant and looking at how you're reflecting on the choices that you're going to be making for service and how it best fits that person at that moment in their time of life, where they're at. And often people might change services as they cycle through their changes and recovery as well. You'll also have planning in that you'll have to have a system where you have follow-up actions as well. So you can put things into place, but it's crucial. The follow-up here is what helps keeps consistency. The follow-up is how the strategies will be implemented and evaluating those resources and referrals that you've been given, that you've given to someone to support them, and how they're working, how they're not, how they're meeting that person's needs. And you'll have policies and procedures in place that will have documentation to show how you are recording processes, the changes for the client. You'll have your procedures that you follow around consent, how you're adhering to client privacy as well, and making sure that your participant understands their rights here as well. This is crucial too for your documentation of your notes here, that they're kept very specific to that person with no judgment and bias, and you're using very direct language in your notes as well. So what is it like to want to, for individuals to want to reduce their use of alcohol and other drugs? Let's have a look at this video. So as we've seen, and which is what part of the activity we did earlier tonight around looking at those services that are available, it caters to the different need and to what's going to work for you as well, because it's not a one-size-fits-all model at all. Mark, how would you define that?
I was hoping you were not going to ask that. Look, because it comes back to me. It comes down to the type of drinker. Okay, because a journal for me didn't work. I did try that, but I was too pissed to fill it out. I'd get to that's my 6th drink, and then I'd forget to fill out the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever. And then I just didn't care because I knew I was drinking too much anyway. So it wasn't worth me doing a journal. Now, that's me. That doesn't necessarily mean that, a heavy drinker or a problem drinker or someone who's isolating that they've got a problem couldn't do that. But for me, a journal, if you know you've got a problem, I don't know how a journal really can help that. I think journal might be to start realizing you've got a problem, but by the time by the time you're doing a journal, I think you've already decided you've got a problem. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing a journal. But anyway, no, I mean, look, that's I would probably suggest to somebody who was still trying to decide, why don't you keep a journal, knowing what the result's probably going to be.
Yeah, write down what you've activated. I think in that steps, even just saying rang AA, talk to someone, doesn't feel good fit. I'll call, the next one, and that way you could document if you were keen enough to do that. I think it's like I said, there's no one model fits all.
No.
It'll certainly be part of that journey to explore what will work, what will fit, and then something might fit for a while and then it doesn't because you've changed and you have a different need as well. Tash?
Sorry. I was just going to say, journal writing in the pre-contemplation and the contemplation phase is probably a good idea, but everyone is different, obviously. But I tend to agree. I don't think journaling would be beneficial once you're already, it would only be beneficial as a look at my history, look at where I am now, look how much I used to drink versus how much I'm drinking now. If we're going through the pre-contemplation, contemplation, and then before you hit the active part, I think once you've hit the active part, the journaling doesn't really do much. But that's just that's how I perceive it.
I think it's be good to look at it too, as Adam says, this is part of motivation. So
yeah,
this is the part where we're helping somebody to do the reflecting, which, as Adam says, it'll bring up that self-awareness. So we've got to go from contemplating, doing, that motivational interviewing that we were talking about is all part of this process where that reflecting tool helps create the motivation to do something
Okay.
because self-awareness has come in. So a journal can be something that can be done in so many ways. Journaling's doesn't have to be this whole story. It can be a dot point type thing of just actions you've done. Called John to speak about feeling off today, those sort of things.
Okay, sorry. I
You
thought
can
you
keep
meant
track.
like itemizing everything, like
Yeah,
because
no, see, that's more deep exploration stage of journaling. Journaling can be this whole deep exploration of everything that's coming out, but journaling also can be just a tracker. When you
well,
first
you can
start,
use them on your phone. You can get
yes,
trackers on your phone.
yeah, I mean a tracker as in you're writing notes on what you did that day, your actions, like you attended GP, got medication for blah, blah, blah. You can go back and then reflect over this time period, the actions that you've taken by keeping
Uh,
a chart or a list or a
okay, yeah.
flow. You're keeping a copy of what you've done. So then you can start reflecting on, I've done all these processes, but I'm not moving forward. This is good because you're getting into that talking stage where
And the only reason why I brought it up is because, like I said, that friend of mine who went into renal failure, she was abusing opiates, and they told her that she had to write a journal of how many times like what time she would take what medication and that, so they knew when she'd go into dialysis that she was, doing the right thing, the like
yeah,
doing something to benefit
yeah.
herself.
But
And
that's medically,
she got so overwhelmed with how much she was taking that she just started taking more, because she just got so overwhelmed with the visual look of, oh my God, I've
like that.
taken all
Yeah.
this.
And
That's
that's where
where
we
I
say
was,
this is such an individual tool, Tash, that nothing, it's not a one size fits all. And this is where I want to stress that, you as the consumer can also, if you're working with people and you can see that the process is not working, change it, find something else for somebody else that fits
yeah,
them.
yeah. Oh, we lost you there.
Find, can you hear me?
Yeah, you lagged a bit.
Find the fit for the participant, find where the processes mean something. So, and it could be all different ways that are there, like they talked about in that last video, the peer worker, Mark's proven that talking, that connecting, that building your network is can be crucial for many. It's not for everybody, but there's another tool. So take it that way, and and like we just said, we're talking about journaling. It doesn't have to be in a specific way. You can be very different with it. You can be stick-it notes and things like that. So there's all different ways that you can be
Sorry,
creative with people to be able to keep an understanding of what their behaviors are over that time.
sorry about that.
You're all good. I think it's good to explore the understanding of what we're putting out there to know how we can manage that in a different way, because everybody is individual. This is where it's good to have lots of options. Mark?
Yeah, Helen, what does the industry say, in their opinion, is the chances of success for alcoholism, someone for full-blown alcoholic or drug addict or gambler? What's the percentage rate that they talk about?
Let me have a look, because I do have some stats here.
Where are the stats from?
ABS.
Yep.
But the AOD Australia stats on sex. Let's have a look here. There's the AIHW government treatment services. There's reports that they have that come out on what's been identified. And let's have a look. I'm going to bring up the, so there's a national AOD and other drug treatment service report, and that came out on the 16th of April this year, and it has insights into the treatment. I think if you want to go and have a look at this, it's aihw.gov.au. Do go and have a look at that report, because the services, it has insights into the reporting. It has the analysis that's been presented in what has happened around the country. And it also goes by state and territory as well. I'll see if I can bring up a state and territory findings. Okay, so let me just go back here. So in 2022 here, there were 1,300 publicly funded agencies providing services for AOD treatment in Australia, ranging from 17 in the ACT to 475 in New South Wales. Alcohol was the most common drug of concern for the Northern Territory, Tasmania, Western Australia, New South Wales, ACT, South Australia, and then came Queensland and Victoria. Now, 42% of those had treatment episodes that people actually went in, and they were the most common issues in the states here, next to amphetamines, which the ACT had one of the strongest records there over that period. So the services increased over that period of time, and then the client rates were for treatment were receiving specialist treatment were 576 per 100,000 people.
Yeah,
So the
but it
rate of
doesn't, they're not,
clients,
but they don't quote any recovery rates, do they?
no, the rates of
Yeah.
clients treated by publicly funded agencies in each state showed
Yeah.
a decline
Yeah.
on the number of clients who actually then returned as well.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this
yeah,
is
but
sorry.
no, I was just going to say, look, I can quote you what a really expensive rehab, which is Malvern Private, at $10,000 a week to stay there. They charge, and I was there, only for health insurance that covered me, but they quote figures of 10%. AA would look at it about, honestly, they quote about 7%.
Yeah, I was just going to say 8%.
Yeah, it's really, really low. It's really low.
And it's probably changing the terminology. What is the understanding what success is? Because success is long-term recovery. You're in recovery for the rest of your time. but that's a success, isn't it? So how are we going to define success?
Or how we,
Because
yeah, sorry. And then
Yeah,
it comes back to
so
what is recovery as well. But
exactly.
anyway, I don't want to go there.
So the definitions here. So I think what's happening here though is that one thing that's changed over the past 10 years is now that the peer worker role is now a validated role in the services now. So it's an accredited role now. It was always just a volunteer. So for some of those people who are in recovery forever and has successfully moved forward with their lives with that, becoming peer workers is changing the face of, I think, of word success. I think it's more about positive change and agency for that person that's created from that. So I think there's probably higher rates of improvement in people's lives. I think that would be good to be looking at in how much improvement have people made in their lives through the system of having peer workers, because they're people who are in recovery for the rest of their days. So difficult one there, but in working with our strategies in the programs, in if you're working in this sector, you know that and as Adam said here, you know, changing your life for the better, taking responsibility, reclaiming that, all that transformation happens is around your journey to recovery. And I think one of the stronger, as I said again, one of the strongest things that have come out of the industry and made it a worthwhile process now is the peer worker. That place, that important place that has in people's lives to help maintain change and less use of turning back and using risky behaviors. They're helping the people identify potential risks and triggers and developing strategies here. And this whole facilitation process here is about managing and identifying those triggers and limiting those access to those risks as well for yourself. And this is where it's crucial to have that one-on-one on support, team support, a network of people identifying things, and then also helping, they're the ones who then help that individual identify their limits. And you will have limits as a worker to work by as well. So there's some restrictions here for everyone. So this is a substance abuse and counselling demonstration. It's 23 minutes, but I would like for you to watch this at home when the recording comes out. It certainly contains various case studies. And it's also gives you an insight into what's happening here in this sector. So how do we make referrals? And what options and responsibilities do we have as a worker here? And Mark, can I ask, in your work, what policies and procedures do you have with AA that you must follow?
Because there's no rules in AA, so I mean, look, there's insurance. Like we can't take dogs into meetings. And there's behavioural stuff. There's no police in AA though. There's no hierarchy.
Mm.
In fact, the most important person is the newcomer that walks through the door. So, you know, imagine a newcomer coming in and deciding policy for the rest of the guys in there. We all want to when we first walk in, but show everyone how it works. But no, I mean, look, there's a structure, sort of, in AA, but
Yeah.
it's probably
Yeah, so
not
there
a
is a
good
structure
example.
that you follow. Yeah.
There is the structure.
But there still is a structure that you follow. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's traditions, so it's theoretical. It's not law, and it's not
Law.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's
But
what I
then
wanted to point out, the differences
yeah.
of that, because
yeah,
an AOD service
yeah,
is much more structured. Lots of things that you have to adhere to as a worker in the industry.
yeah,
And certainly some of the registration things that you have to be able to work in the industry, you know, having your blue cards, your excuse me, your police checks. If you're working in the NDIS sector, you have to do those NDIS clearance courses. Mark, just on that with placement, can you name the things that you were asked to do by Skill Track? You had to do a few mini courses to be prepared for that interview.
yeah.
Can you just name those, please?
Well, besides the work with children check and the police check, absolutely. If you haven't got that already and you're thinking about doing some placement, that's going to take 15 plus days to get through, maybe 20 days. So that, and then there was the digital certificate, which is,
I think you have your NDIS clearance worker.
yeah, you've got an NDIS, but there's different levels of NDIS as well. But I'll just dig up the other one, a certificate of completion for, no, that's reasonable. Certificate infection control. So that one was infection control was the National Hand Hygiene Institute, which is the Australian Commission on Safety and Quality in Healthcare. So I had to do that one. That took about 3 hours to work out how to wash my hands. And yeah, police check. Then I've got other ones there, but they're not relevant to that
Okay.
NDI. So if you're going to be working with disability or aged care, you certainly have to have the NDIS qualifications as well. Again, that's a course that you can sit in a day.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Now, as a worker, understanding what options you have for referral is important here. And for you, understanding what's available in somebody's vicinity. Or it could be an option that they want to go away to a living facility as well. So finding out all those options there, costings, the timeframes, the criteria to be able to access these. So some of these services where Mark was talking around AA is that free movement of in and out. You're not signing policies and agreements and on practice, on processes and what you're going to adhere to here, but in a more structured agency that's working with AOD supports, there is more structured here. And there are criteria to be met as well. There's also an agreement for people to be able to, their behaviour, their management of that behaviour in these processes are crucial too. If you do relapse and use, often that will put you out of the program, whereas other programs look at it as a lapse and a relapse and take you back around through those contemplation and motivation stages. Whereas some programs, that's the limit. you use
Yeah.
you're back out. So it's very, very strict, and you need to know those parameters too, because that is often sometimes not flexible enough, and it can throw somebody back the other way. And yes, Mark.
I was just going to say, yeah, on that, exactly what you're saying on the negative side about AA, NA, and all of these, your peer has no qualification other than the fact that they might be a day more sober than you, and there is plenty of bad peers out there. There is plenty of sick people in AA. Understand, there's no regulation there. There is predators. There is there's guys that and females that just have no idea how to help somebody, and sometimes their motivations are not clear. So yeah, but when you're going through a paid support program or rehab or anything like that that has an underlining policy in place, at least you're going to be dealing, you're going to be dealing with professionals, whether they know what they're doing or not. One thing, but that you are going to be dealing with people you hope know what they're doing, whereas you're just guessing with AA. Sorry, go on.
And for you be able to utilize that in relationship side by side with a program that you're in, it's like a second network. It could be as a support system as well, as an extension of what you're doing. But to be a worker in the industry and to be able to have options here, you certainly, you could be also looking at needing legal representation for your people that are coming in to the services, and they might be court mandated to be in a service as well. So there's that refusal and butting up against the system of being told they have to do something, and they're not ready for that change. And that can also then bump them out of the program, and then they would be breaking their agreement with the law around adhering to a process that they have to do. So that causes more issues. But you have to identify your responsibilities in all that you do here, making sure you're documenting your work, you're notifying relevant information. Your organisation that you sign up with will have policies and procedures around your behaviours, how the whole program operates. Some of them are very strict around their processes and how they manage their participants, and documentation is huge. So any other worker can actually come in, pick up and work and operate and support that person if that other worker cannot be there. So it's crucial that our note taking here is on point as well. With going into a program, consent is huge here. Consent to give over to a program, consent to comply with the regulations that they will have in place, consent to be a part of and contribute to the recovery change process, consent to be restricted access to many things. There are many things you would be consenting with as a participant in programs, and it feels quite restrictive to start with, but that is around taking you into a place, taking the client into a place where they have a starting point. And your policies and procedures in your organizations will be able to flow you through that as well. I think if you're working in a walk-in service that's seeking information and support, it could be a day support, case management work, your understanding of options for somebody is crucial here. Make sure that you do have a list of services that you can access, but the one thing in the industry is to find out when you are doing referrals, does that meet the person's criteria? But do they have capacity to take other people as well? Often their services are so full and we keep referring to them, but the people are not getting seen in very short periods of time. It's like waiting sometimes to get support in the mental health field. It can be months and months and months. At that time when that person puts their hand up saying, I want help, I want to change, it's where we need to be able to go into refer them to a service that has the capacity to take them on board as well. Tash?
Sorry, just give me a couple of minutes. I'm just trying to look for something and then I'll put my hand back up when I found it.
Okay, right. So I know from working in the homelessness sector when we had people coming into our services who had AOD illnesses as well, and helping them go to a service and actually be spoken to, and for somebody to be able to start them on the process of support is crucial because they're there asking for it. The next day it mightn't be there. So finding out somewhere where you can have somebody walk in and be seen and at least heard starts that process off. Other organizations that we would ring, have you got the capacity to take a family for support around family relationship to do with drug and alcohol dependency? And often the family groups were the ones waiting for up to 6 months to be able to have some support. They have a rotation process of people who would come in and touch base with open day services, but that gave you 10 minutes with a case manager that you could speak to someone around support services, and you were just given some leaflets around other referral services to go to. They were like a broker in a sense, and also trying to give people strategies to cope in between time. And that's often what has to happen. That's coping strategies in the meantime before getting help. Tash?
Sorry. I just because this just reminded me. In one of our I'm not going to say which assessment it is, but in one of our assessments, in the role play section, it says to obtain consent to provide the information to relevant professionals and discuss any referrals that you've identified and what will happen next. Do you remember how we had to do that consent form a few topics ago, where we actually had to fill out the form and submit it with the assessment?
Yeah.
Do we
yeah.
have to do that again for the role plays in AOD?
If that's what it requires you to do, yes.
It doesn't, it's really vague. It just says obtain her consent to provide her information to relevant professionals. That's all it says. It doesn't.
Is that in the role play itself, Tash?
Oh, that's just in the during the role play, your assessor will be looking to see that you blah 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 blah.
Okay. I think we're going one step. You're going into asking questions about task, and we're
Yeah,
talking about.
sorry, I just because it came up with consent and referrals, and that's what tweaked my memory. I was like, oh shit, I forgot to ask about that.
Well, let's just bring it back to industry standards here. Every
Yep,
time
sorry.
you do something, you gain somebody's consent to do something, whether it's by form or verbal consent. If you're getting verbal consent of somebody to be able to refer them on, you take note of that in your notes.
Okay.
if somebody's actually signed consent to come to a service, that might have actually encompassed the consent to have their information sent to another service. That
Yep.
would told them about confidentiality. But for you, no matter what all the other forms you have signed, you still ask, do I have your consent to pass on your information to, as a referral to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, an AOD specialist?
Yeah. Okay.
And you,
Cool.
if you're
Thank you.
doing that verbal consent, Tash, please make sure that you put it in your case notes
Yeah. Okay.
that this is normal practice in the industry for everything,
Okay.
not just AOD. This is when we talk about consent in AOD, this is consenting or different things to be referrals to happen, and the documentation might look different in AOD to mental health AOD. But that consent is about the willingness for that information to be shared. If we're not doing that, we're then breaking our duty of care here, because we have that duty of care right across the board. So every time you step, every time you refer, every time you ask, will I look into that for you? Gain consent. That's even just finding out information. Can I do that on your behalf for you? Gain consent. Because why do we do that? Why do we even gain
Cover our
consent?
butts.
Sorry, Tash?
To cover our butts.
Yes. But what does that do for the
It-
participant?
It gives them gives them choice. It gives them what their ability to make choices on their own.
Agency. Yes. It gives them the leadership of that process. It gives them a collaborative part of that process. It gives them, and
Empowerment.
which is we want,
That's the word I was
yes,
thinking of. Sorry.
we want that agency to help them, give them self-determination to keep moving forward with it. When we ask for consent for even the smallest things, do I have your consent to put that into your notes? Do I have your consent to make some research and bring that back to you? Because they mightn't want to know that information. Now, can I do that on your behalf for you? Or would you like to do this with me now? You can sit there on the computer and do exploration of other services as well, or what it's going to look like for them by going to another service. You might explore something that person's interested in, or your participant's interested in, and you've got the basic information. Do you have could I have your permission? Would you like to explore this with me? It's just stepping into their space and saying, I'm doing this with you, not over you. And that's where the agency comes in, because we talk about having the client lead their recovery. If we don't change our practices to reflect that, we're not doing that, then we're telling people what to do. You will have this referral. This is the best thing for you. How do
Yeah.
you know that? How do you know that? We don't know. We all have limitations, but we're working here with the person to bring out that agency. But we must follow policies and procedures of our organisations as Tash says, that covers us as workers, but it also covers that participants' rights as well. That's really crucial in all that we do here. Excuse me. So in saying that, what we've had a look at referral process here with your referrals too, making sure that when you're talking with an individual about it, they actually have an understanding of what the concept of what that referral will mean for them. You have to paint the picture here. It's not just you'll have a referral to go and talk to somebody about this. It'll be just another person to talk to. Another person I have to tell my story to. Another person that's going to tell me what they think I should be doing. Think about painting a picture of what it can offer so they can understand the fit for them before making that decision to go. Think about the possibilities. Use your motivational skills here. You're opening up options. You're just putting them on the table. This is what may happen. It might not for that person, but here's an opportunity to try. Would you like to do that? But this is what it could look like if you do go into this program, because this program has proven results in that, but that's not for everyone. So you're painting a picture of what it can look like if you step in to that referral, to that other service, and what options do they have to say yes or no. This is where you want to give them these options too, because it's about that readiness as well. And you might talk about these same programs 3 or 4 times before somebody's ready to say, okay, I'm ready to go with that now. Yeah. But because they need reassurance that that's going to be right for them. So it's crucial for you to have that information about that too. How do you get that information? It's not just by a phone call, I can tell you that. You as a worker would be very smart to go into those services and talk to the workers there. Ask to talk about the processes here. What are their struggles on their end that they find? What are the successful things that come out of those processes? This is great to build up your network thing. You come back with so much more rich on-the-ground knowledge than just looking at a pamphlet or something online. That opens up the options that you can explore, but when you know that's something that you think that many of your clients might work well with, go in, introduce yourself, network yourself with these people, tell them where you're from, what you do. I want to know what your service does and how can I, if I refer somebody here, what's going to happen? Tell me your end, what's going to happen. I know what I'm trying to set up my end. I want them to have a service that's going to support the person who is asking for that support. How can they meet those needs? And that's where we need to know, how can they meet the needs of our individual clients? We're not going to know all this information, but if we can know they can meet some of those needs, then that's for the client to explore when they do have that referral and take on that process. So this is where we're going to leave it tonight. I think my voice is just hanging in there. We're going to explore the assessments next week, and we'll unpack those as well. And in your assessments, if you are tackling them now, there will be AOD assessment forms. There will be different forms in there for you to have a look at. Do download them and have a look at them. they're very unique in their individual style of the information that they have. Sharon?
Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
My question doesn't relate to what we are discussing. It
Okay,
just,
so
yeah.
well, let me finish recording and then we'll talk about that, okay? Okay. So for our learners at home, please, Calendly appointments are opening up, and you can email lso@haiderinstitute.edu.au if you need support. And we'll see you next week. And please, everybody, stay safe. Lots of people are unwell, so please look after yourselves and nourish yourselves.